Welcome to the Refine and Shine, the podcast dedicated to mastering the art of continuous improvement and optimizing every aspect of your life. I'm Angelina Rivera, your host, and together we'll uncover the secrets to refining our lives, our habits, and our processes to unlock our inner brilliance. Join us on Refine and Shine, where we'll delve deep into achieving more in life without the burnout and without all the stress. This podcast is your platform for a more fulfilling life through continuous improvement and personal growth. In each episode, I and a diverse array of guests discuss practical strategies for up-leveling every aspect of your life. From developing good habits and organizing your space to refining your mindset and personal goals, we're going to explore it all. Our guests share personal stories about the systems they've developed or systems they've used and the tweaks they've made in their lives when refinement was needed, allowing them to truly shine. Listen to Refine and Shine to learn how you can implement continuous improvement techniques in your daily routine, develop and maintain healthy habits that lead to success and satisfaction, organize your life to reduce the stress and increase your productivity, foster a growth mindset that propels you to new heights. My mission is to inspire you to take bold action, make positive changes, and become the best version of yourself. Whether you're aiming to elevate your career, nurture meaningful relationships, or enhance your overall well-being, Refine and Shine is your guiding light. With over 25 years of experience in continuous improvement, I help businesses streamline their processes, establish efficient work areas, and implement standard work protocols. I have trained over 600 individuals and teams in process improvement, optimizing workflows, and enhancing overall operational efficiency. Tune in every week as we embark on an enlightening journey, exploring paths to refinement and illuminating the way to shine in every area of our lives. Subscribe now and join us on this journey to polish your life and let your best self shine through. Thank you for joining us on Refine and Shine. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Refine and Shine podcast. I have another amazing guest, and I think I always say that because I just love doing this podcast because I meet so many amazing people, and I love sharing people's stories because we all can learn how to refine and shine. And when people share their stories, you can relate to them, and I think it's just so amazing. So my guest today is Cristina P. Simmons. She is a passionate advocate for women's holistic health, driven by her personal journey through grief, trauma, and radical transformation. After earning her master's in occupational therapy to better support her autistic son, Cristina discovered her deeper calling, helping women heal emotionally, physically, and spiritually through trauma-informed wellness. She is the author of the book, Eat Your Feelings, a self-help memoir, blending real-life resilience and with tangible tools as a guide out of survival mode into sustainable healing. She is named one of the women to watch in 2025 by She Means Business magazine and one of the top 40 speakers shaping the future by Voices of Change magazine. Cristina shares her story on stages and free webinars and through her powerful coaching work. Her mission is rooted in compassion, resilience, and the belief that every woman deserves to heal and rise on her own terms and in her own time. So welcome, Cristina. I'm so excited to have you here today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so glad we finally get to meet. I know we have a lot of mutual friends.
Yes. And it's just great to connect. And I think that's the power of one, putting yourself into rooms. And then though we weren't able to connect at the room because I wasn't able to go through the medical reasons, but just getting those, seeing who else is attending these events and connecting with these people even prior to going to events. So you get to know them a little bit better. And you have an amazing story and you've had through an amazing life. But when I say amazing, it's not that it's been easy. You've had some ups and downs and your life has just been crazy in some ways. But I'd love to say that you're still smiling today. But it wasn't something that happened overnight. And so kind of walk us through your journey of how you become the woman that has been through, like you shared, trauma, grief, all of these things to the woman that you are today.
So my husband and I were married pretty young, 22 and 23. And when we got pregnant, I was 25 with our first pregnancy. And we found out at 6 months that we carry a very rare gene that makes very sick babies. So I had to stay pregnant for about a month and a half, knowing that our daughter was going to pass away. They weren't even sure that she was going to make it through the birthing process, but she ended up living 3 days, which I say a lot of times was a blessing and a curse because it was like the longer that we had time with her, the harder it was to let her go. I had a miscarriage not too long after that because they never discouraged us from trying again because the gene is recessive. So there was a 75% chance that we could have a totally healthy baby, but it happened to us 3 times. So our first daughter passed away in 2002, and then our second passed away in 2003, and then we had a son that passed away um, 2008. But through the miracle of adoption, we lost 2 girls and a boy, and we were so blessed to adopt 2 girls and a boy. Our twin girls were born on Christmas Day, 2003, and then their brother was born 2008, months up. Well, actually, let me think about this. A couple months after we lost our last baby, our son. So everything that was taken was given back, and all of that was miraculous and ended up being really, really great. But through the loss of our babies, I never really had time to process their loss because then we went into having twins, and I mean, that was just all crazy. We never had any children, and then we go from having none to twins, and they were born with cocaine in their system, so they were a little bit special needs, especially in the beginning. And then our son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4. So that brought on a whole new set of problems. And I was still sort of living in survival mode and just trying to get through every day. My husband and I were still working full time. And it got to the point with our son that he was kicked out of every daycare we ever had him in. He ended up getting dismissed from school, and we had to homeschool for a little while. And I just couldn't find any help for him. And so at the age of 39, I thought it would be a fantastic idea to go back to school while having twin daughters and an autistic son. And then I was going to go back to school and work part time to get my master's in occupational therapy. So that's exactly what I did in order to be able to raise our son better. And I'm so grateful that I did do that. It was hard, but my husband was very supportive. And I want to brag on my son for just a little bit. So he was in an autism school for 4 years because, like I said, we couldn't find any traditional schools where he really fit the mold. And then this past year, he's now 16, and I took him out of the autism school and put him into public high school as a sophomore. And I was scared to death because he had never been in that kind of environment before. He had never navigated like 8 classes at one time. I was worried about bullying, the whole thing. He did fantastic. And he's been asked to be in the National Honor Society, and he navigated all of his classes. And not that we didn't have struggles, but he just did so much better than I ever thought he could be. I'm so proud of him. Um, so back up just a little bit. Right before I was supposed to start school for occupational therapy, I was then diagnosed with cancer. I had a tumor growing from the inside of my femur bone. So life at that point kind of stopped because I had to have a bone biopsy and then a major leg surgery. So I now have a plate and 7 screws that are permanently in my leg. And in the midst of all that, my husband and I had some marital problems. We stopped communicating for a little while because I was depressed and full of anxiety and just trying to make it through every day. And so he was unfaithful at one point, but that I'm actually grateful for that now because that really put me on my health and wellness journey because I realized that I was not taking care of myself. And that is why I wasn't taking care of him. I wasn't being the best mom for my kids. I wasn't being the best at work. I mean, I realized it was just an eye opening moment that I really had to turn inward and love myself again in order to be able to love everybody else. So that put me on like this fitness and nutrition and all that kind of thing. So on top of being an author and a speaker, and I'm a pediatric occupational therapist. I currently work in the school system. I'm also a fitness and nutrition coach. So I have my certification in that too. And sometimes when I say all these things, I'm like, I am a crazy person. Like, how do I even, how do we even do all these things? But I think it's important for other women to see that you can do all the things and still be joyful and still be happy and still be in alignment. Um, but you have to learn to love yourself first, and then you can take care of everybody else. So very long life in a short amount of time.
What I think you said a lot of important things, and I think that, I mean, what an amazing journey that you've been through. And the day that I started, the day that I had my first full episode of the podcast was on the anniversary of the day that my daughter, um, that I had miscarried at 20 weeks of pregnancy would have been born. That was her due date. Of course, 20 something years later, but
Yeah.
and I relate that you don't, when you're going through those things, you do not know how to deal with with the loss of a child. And especially when you go through, like, even like, the miscarriages and all, you ask yourself, did I do everything right? What does this mean about me? And then you still have children to take care of. So then you're like going through, I got to take care of the children still, and or I got to show up, and you just kind of like go through the motions, but you never really heal. And you have like, and that's one of the things, like you know, I could so relate to that. And it wasn't until years later that I realized, how much burned out I was getting. And there were times, like even months later, I mean, I was taken by ambulance at one point because I collapsed from such burnout and exhaustion because I didn't take care of me. And I think that, I do a lot of things, as well, like, a lot of activities, and I have certifications and all these things that people are like, how can you do it? When you learn how to take care of you and really love yourself and learn how to focus. And it's not selfish. I will tell people that, like, it is not selfish because God made you for a reason. And if you can't pour from an empty cup, if you aren't taking care of you. And what does that show to our children too? That, oh, they never see mom eating at the dinner table because she's washing dishes right away so that she can get you to bed. Like all of these things that they see when we're not taking care of ourselves, and they think that that's something that they have to model as well when they're older. So it's very important. And I learned this way later in life, which I wish I would have learned it earlier. But it is what it is, and God, everything happens for a reason, and we there is going to be some questions when I meet, our creator, and be like, hey, why did this happen? But I'm sure he's going to ask me some questions too, like, why did you do this? But it's very important that we just learn how to heal and learn how to take time for ourselves first and making that a priority. And so what was that journey like, to starting to learn how to love yourself?
So there wasn't really just one thing. Like I said, the turning point was really when my husband was unfaithful, which seems very strange. I know when I say that out loud, but it made me take responsibility for my part in our relationship. Like I wasn't holding up my end of the bargain. And neither was he, obviously. I mean, both of us had we became disconnected because I think we both grieved in different ways too. So that's really hard when you lose a child. I mean, you don't know how to comfort each other. And I've said many times before, like every time I wanted to talk about it, I would cry, and it upset him when I cried. And so we just stopped talking at all because we didn't want to upset each other. And it was because we loved each other that we did that. You know what I mean? We were trying to save each other from more grief, but you have to move through it. And that's what the name of my book is, Eat Your Feelings, because my coping mechanism was eating. Instead of processing what I was actually feeling, I was just stuffing it down with food. And so I became very inflamed. I had a lot of chronic pain. I had terrible gut issues. Like I started having all of these physical problems. I had migraines for years. I had panic attacks. I mean, I've, if you don't deal with the trauma, it is going to deal with you at some point. So, and I love that you said that everything happens for a reason, because I say that a lot. I kind of use that as like one of my little quotes. Because I mean, everything that's ever happened to us, just with every child that we lost, we gained one back from God. And every tragedy that I've ever been through, I've always learned something from it. I've always grown from it, and I've been able to be better and help other people through what I've been through. So, and that was another reason why, well, God told me to write the book. I'm really being obedient because there's a lot of things in there that are, I'm a little bit worried about going out into the world. You know what I mean? It's like all my tragedy is in one little paperback. So it's kind of scary, but I learned to heal through other women sharing their stories. And so I know that we need community, and we need other women to go before us and be brave and courageous and tell, tell all the things that they've been through and how they navigated it, so that we can heal too.
I think that that's so important. I mean, you've said a lot of amazing things, and the one part is the communication. And one of my things that I teach is time management, and I always tell people the first thing you need to do is, one, you schedule time for yourself on your calendar first. Then you schedule time for your family, and then you work in the work and all the other things. But because if you put yourself last and you try to fit in your workouts and all these other things, or even try to fit your family in, like in between, it shows that you don't, that you showing everybody else that you don't love yourself enough to make sure that you're a priority. And it also shows your family that, that they don't matter if you try to fit them in the nooks and crannies. But one of the other thing that I teach people is making sure that you communicate the calendar so that everybody knows the schedule. Even like dinners, what are we going to have for the week for dinners and all of the things. So we're not wasting time and energy trying to plan these things out. And so communication is a huge piece for that. And so I love how you shared, when you don't have communication, and I find that with my own marriage. We've been married for, I don't know, lost track, 22 years, I think. But we've been together, we're high school sweethearts. And when
Oh, wow.
we don't learn when we stop communicating, or we don't talk about things, or even our feelings, and like I said, when we went through a lot of trouble in our relationship too, when we lost when we miscarried, and all of those things, because we grieve differently, or when we've had deaths in our family of loved ones and all those other things. Like, how do you talk to somebody about this or that? Like, I've never lost my parents, and when he lost a parent, or when just different things, we just don't know how to do that. Like, there's not a one size fits all, right? And how do you communicate? And I think that that's important, is just to learn the best way to communicate the best you can. And even having that when things are good, don't wait till you're in a fight, but when things are good, say, hey, I really want to know is, how do I best talk to you about this issue? Or, this is something we need to talk about, or, you know what I mean? Like, you have to have that time where you don't wait until things are bad and just like let it out, like word vomit and get into an argument. So I love that you share that. And I love that you share that, even though, it was like, it's not a one size fits all. It wasn't like I did this, this, and this, and it was just one turning event. Like, if there's things that we have to process in our lives, and and through every process, or every downfall, or everything that was hard that you went through, you got to see the sun, or the whatever the beautiful thing out of it, even if it didn't seem like it at the time. Talk to us a little bit about your cancer journey. Like, how did you go through all of that and still go and get your master's and everything?
So the grace of God is it's all I can say. It actually, the tumor was found by accident. So when I decided to go back to school, I had this knee that bothered me from like since I was a teenager. I played lots of sports as a teenager. I played soccer and ran track. And so I had this one knee that I had surgery on twice. And so it had just bothered me all my life. Like that was just, I figured that was just how it was going to be. And every once in a while I would get like a cortisone shot in it. And so I knew that when I went into occupational therapy school that I was going to have to transfer patients. We had to learn to do clinicals and all that kind of thing. And my knee was bothering me. And I thought, well, let me go in, get a cortisone shot so that I can get through, this part of the school and move on about my business. And when the doctor did the x-ray, he said, see this stuff right here? And this little white stuff right here? And I was like, yeah. And he said, that's not supposed to be there. And I was like, well, that's not why I'm here. I didn't want you to find new things. I
Mhm.
wanted you to fix the old things. Um, so anyway, he ended up referring me to a specialist. And when we first went in, the specialist said, usually when I see scans like this, he said it means amputation because he thought I had chondrosarcoma, bone cancer. And I thought that is not happening. Like I'm not having my leg amputated. It's like what are the other options here? And they ended up sending my cultures to Johns Hopkins, which is like the foremost expert on bone cancer. And they didn't even know what it was. They deemed it atypical borderline. But to me and my husband, it still was foreign and it needed to come out because they did give us the option of just waiting and see if it grew. But I mean, I didn't think that was a very good plan. It was actually bowing my femur out. You could see it on the x-ray, and the doctor wanted me to get off that leg right away. He was like, you need to not put pressure on this. Um, they were afraid that it would break and whatever was in there would like spread to my whole system. So, and at this point, I was like addicted to the gym. I mean, I was deadlifting, I was leg pressing like 200 pounds, I was box jumping, I was like a fanatic. And
Uh-huh.
then I had this tumor growing inside of my leg, and like my leg could have broken at any moment. It was really God. I mean, the whole thing was just divinely orchestrated. Um, but I had to, the rehab was pretty extensive. I was on a walker for like 6 weeks, I think, and then a cane for 8 weeks. And I ended up, months of physical therapy and back to the gym. I actually went to the gym on my walker to do like arms and back. Like I just, cause I had such a family, I had built a family and a community at the gym, and that was such a part of my life. And so that it like, I kind of lost my identity a little bit, because like my husband's a big fisherman. And so he goes fishing all the time. Like that's his thing. We have things that we do together, and then the gym was my thing. That was where I went to decompress and where I didn't have to worry about the kids or work or any of that. And then I lost that too. So that was like another turning point in my life. I was like, I have to not let these things be my identity. Which was just another way of me really finding out who I was and who I was in God's eyes and not how the world saw me. But I pretty much do everything I want to now. I mean, I have to modify a lot of things, like that leg is smaller than my other leg. And so I can't lift as heavy on that side. And sometimes, I have to hold on to things when I do stuff on that side. But I've been very fortunate that I work out just as hard as I want. And it gives me a different perspective. I get to work out and I have two legs. And so I'm fortunate to have that perspective because a lot of people don't get that, and so I don't, I don't take that for granted.
I love that you share that. And I love that, and just not taking it for granted and that you feel, it's a privilege and an honor and you're so thankful because you were able to keep your leg. And just like it's funny that your not funny, but that your orthopedic saw it. And the reason I was kind of smiling when you said that is because I started having knee problems and I've always had neck problems and back problems. But I kind of just like, oh, it's just a constant. I've had, been diagnosed with arthritis in my neck and everything. And I'm like, it's just always going to be there. When my knee started giving problems, that's when I went to go see an orthopedic. And the orthopedic's like, I don't really want to talk about your knee. You're able to do all these things. It's probably just a flare up. You probably did something. He's like, I want to talk to you about your neck because he saw my x-rays from what one x-ray was years ago to what my present day x-ray was,
Mhm.
that there was some very cause for concern where I don't have a curve in my neck like most people do. And
Oh,
because I've had so much trauma in my neck from car accidents and then the arthritis and everything like that. And he's like, we need to really do something about your neck because if we don't do something about it soon, like you're not going to be able to use your neck. Like you're not going to be
ooh,
able to do things. And like the narrowing space of my neck was between the T6 was so very narrow where it makes it like, and it affects everything. It affects my nerves. It affects like I have to see a neurologist and it even affects like, the ability to hold your bladder, your bladder and
oh
stuff.
yeah,
There's so
yeah.
many things. And I always just thought, oh, my neck's in pain. And I thought all these other things were something else. And I was like, oh, wow, like all of these things. And so I think that that's like these orthopedic specialists, like we go there for one problem and then they find something totally different. And so I didn't mean to smile big when you said that, but it was just like, I was like, oh, wow, that's crazy how you went for one thing and then found this. And I think which is very important is we got to listen to our bodies too.
Yes, yes. Yeah, that's for sure. That's another thing that I've really taken note of. And that's another way that I have healed, because now when I feel something, I learn to sit with it. And like, like if I get angry, or I get scared, or I'm like, why am I feeling that way? And it's usually something from childhood, or something, that happened a long time ago, like when the kids were little. My dad was a yeller. And so when my kids were little, I tended to be a yeller as well. But what I've learned is that when I yelled, it came from a place of fear, because it was usually like if they were about to hurt themselves, or if they were, um, I don't know, if they were upset about something that happened at school, or, you know what I mean? Anything like that. Um, I would like blow it way out of proportion, but it was because I was hurting for them, but I didn't know how to express my fear, my anger, any of those things, because when I was a kid, I was not allowed to be heard. I didn't have a voice. Nothing I ever said was right. So that's, I came from a childhood like that, and then coming into early adulthood and having, losing a child at the age of 25, um, it started to make me like, I thought everything was my fault, like something I did, because I grew the baby. You know what I mean? Like it must have been something that I did. I must be wrong. Like something's wrong with me. And it took me a lot of years to come to terms with that, and to understand that that was not my fault. And there's a lot of things that we can't control. So I learned to accept those things, and then focus on the things that were in my control, like my health, and my mental capacity, and my spirituality, and all those kinds of things. So you got to let go of the things that you can't control.
Yes, I think that's so important because we can't take everything in, and even setting boundaries too, I think is also important, because when we try to take everything in and take everybody like we can't control certain things. We just have to like not lose sleep over it. Or like I'll go to the grocery store sometimes and I'm like, I'm like on a time limit. I want to get all these things done and it's busy. And even my son sometimes, or my husband will say sometimes like, Mom, honey, whatever, if it's whatever, when it's with me, don't get frustrated. Just be okay at it. Like there's some, like the system will go down or whatever. You can't control it. You're stuck here. And that's right. Like you can't. And I have like been learning, like when I would have flying all the time, we kind of talked about this before we started recording, but when I was flying all the time, there would be or delays and all that stuff. And I learned quickly, just, okay, it is what it is, learn how to surrender. But I quickly have lost that like this last month. And I'm like, why am I losing that? And I'm like, okay, I got to calm myself down. And I think it's because I was, home healing and doing all these things for my surgery, that I had to like get myself back into perspective. So I'm like, okay, now I'm just gonna like breathe for 5 minutes or 5 seconds, breathe in, breathe out, and just learn how to relax myself, or like learn that it's okay. Like there's delays, there's everything that's gonna happen, and it's all in God's timing, right? And
Well,
we
I
just
think when you're in pain, though, because you've been healing from surgery, and so you're probably having a lot of pain.
oh
I was
yeah,
just going to say, like, I can relate to that, because I used to be so inflamed, and I had all this chronic pain, like fibromyalgia symptoms. I was so irritable, but it was so hard for me to just make it through the day without pain. And I was so anxious, because, like, I never wanted to go out in public, because like if our friends wanted to go to like a rodeo or a concert or something like that, I automatically, like I would start thinking like days ahead of time. Well, I wonder what the seating is going to be like, and if the chairs are going to be uncomfortable, and my back is going to hurt, and my hips are going to hurt, and like I was already making the whole experience terrible because I was in pain all the time. And I don't think people realize how anxious that makes you, and you're irritable and angry. I mean, because we don't, and when the pain's not there, like you don't realize it. And I think a lot of times when you're in pain, you don't have any idea how you're acting. It's almost like you're a different person.
well, I love that you shared that. I'm gonna tell them that. I'm gonna share that with them because you're right. Because like I said, like I'm still recovering and things like that from my surgery, And it's really important to learn. That's something I didn't even think about, a different perspective. And so I thank you for sharing that, because that's something I need to learn. Like, yes, I should be, I'm only supposed to be out for a certain amount of time, and all of these things, I'm on restrictions, and they need to understand that too, that when I'm sitting, back, or I'm a little frustrated, it's because I can only do certain things for a certain amount of time.
Yeah.
And so I need to give myself grace too.
Yes, you do.
And so all the things that you do now too, you help, the book is, I can't wait to start reading that. But all the things that you're sharing about, you also do coaching. And so tell us, how do you coach people?
So my biggest way right now is through the fitness and nutrition. It's a program called the Faster Way to Fat Loss. So I'm a certified coach under their program. But I got started with them because going through all this trauma, I think, and I want to do more research on this, but I think that threw me into early menopause, because I started having menopausal symptoms in my 30s. And like my mom never had any menopause symptoms at all. I mean, because I've talked to her about this, and I'm like, well, then why did I have all this trouble? And the only thing I can think is all the trauma, because my body was just all out of whack. My hormones were all over the place, and I was so inflamed. So I have done, like, I've been in the fitness and nutrition space for like 15 years, and we take lots of natural supplements and all that kind of thing. And I've done so many programs. you know, um, I've taken so many supplements, and I've been all the diets and all the things, but this program is really the first thing that I found the best community and support system, and the way that they run the program. And as we get older, our body can't take as much stress with the workouts like we used to. So they tailor that to our age group, and it's like 30 minutes in and out. So I just love that program. But I also want to get into helping more women, like with holistic, more like life coaching. So right now, I'm trying to like revamp a program for that. So that'll be coming down the road. But I just love to help women any way that I can. And I even think about maybe having a mastermind down the road. I've got all these ideas now that I have a book coming out, and I'm like, I can do anything. Like before I was thinking all these things are too big. And I think that's another thing that we need to tell other women, is that no dream is too big. If God put that dream in your head, then it's meant for you. Mm-hmm. So, because now that I say that I'm an author and a speaker, 10 months ago, I thought those were never going to happen. I had no idea how to make any of that happen. And here we are. So no dream is too big. Go for it.
No, I love that you shared that, and you're so right. I know that when I was like, I had thought about doing the podcast, and I kept going like, no, I'm not going to do it. So many people have their podcasts, and even today we hear so many, like, about probably 10 of my friends have just started launching their podcast, and I already had 5 people or 5 friends. But we all are different, and we all have a different perspective. And God had it on my heart that to do a podcast, and so yes, finally when it came, I was like, and I have so much joy doing it. And it's cool to, like you meet people and say, oh yeah, I'm a coach, a consultant, and I'm a podcaster. And people are like, wow, what's your podcast about? And for you to, I'm a speaker, I'm an author, I'm a coach, like that's so amazing to hear. And I think that we all give yourself, kudos and celebrate your wins. And especially if God put it on your heart that there is no reason why you can't do it. It may not be in the timing that you want it, because remember, it's in God's timing. And it will happen when it's meant to happen. So I love that.
Exactly. Yeah.
As we wrap up, which I'll make sure that I share your links to your website, and for them to order your amazing book, Eat Your Feelings, which I cannot wait to read myself. But can you tell us some type of word, a quote, or an action that my listeners can take today in order to refine and shine in their lives?
I think it would be what we were talking about earlier. Just everything happens for a reason. And I think now, and my husband thinks I'm totally wacko, but I tell him all the time, I'm like, everything happens for a reason. I mean, if you step in a puddle and get your shoe wet, it must have happened for a reason. Like, I believe that kind of thing. I'll just tell a real quick story before we wrap up. But after my first daughter died, I don't remember how many months it was, but I got into my car after work one day, and there was this overwhelming smell of roses, and I could not figure out where the smell of flowers was coming from. And I like actually got out and was like searching my entire car and never could find anything. And as fast as the smell came, it was gone. Well, while I was out searching my car for these flowers, up at the light that I would have had to drive through, there was a really bad car accident, like a T-bone. And I believe that that was my daughter and that she saved me from being in that car accident. Like I said, everything happens for a reason. And I think that every situation we can learn and grow from.
That gave me chills because I felt that there was something that telling you not, like before you even told me there was an accident, I figured there was something telling you not to do something.
Yeah. Yeah.
I felt that. Yes, everything happens for a reason. We may not always know. We may find out years later what the reasoning is for, but everything happens for a reason. So it's something. It's God.
That's right.
So thank you so much for sharing all these things. And I will love for my listeners to connect with you and just read your book and just anything that they can learn from you and follow you. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Refine and Shine. We hope you find valuable insights and inspiration to fill your journey of continuous improvement. Remember, the key to success lies in refining your processes and letting your inner brilliance shine. If you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe to the podcast and leave a review. Your feedback is greatly appreciated and helps us reach more listeners like you who are eager to refine and shine in all areas of life. Stay connected with us on social media for updates and additional resources and behind-the-scenes content. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to reach out with any suggestions, questions, or success stories you'd like to share. As we wrap up, remember that the power to transform your life lies within you. Keep striving for growth, embracing change, and seeking opportunities to refine your skills. Together, let's continue to shine bright and make a positive impact in the world. Until next time, keep refining and keep shining.